The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected.
Flooding fears across the country with fatal floods in Texas and the Northeast. A new threat makes its way towards the Southeast. Who is impacted and for how long?
He said that the Attorney General should release credible information, and I think that there's going to be more to come on that, and you can read into my statement on that.
It's MAGA versus Trump, how the once unifying call to release the Epstein files is turning conservatives against one another. And then the fate of Jerome Powell. Will President Trump answer the call by some lawmakers to force the Fed to change its chair? This is the National News Desk, America's News Now. I'm Dee Dee Gatton. Thank you for joining us. We begin tonight with a live look over Chicago as a line of severe storms just passed the city within the last 15 minutes. Nearly 100 million Americans from the Central Plains to the Northeast are under risk for severe weather tonight. Here is a live look over New Orleans, where a tropical disturbance is growing in the Atlantic and bearing down on the city. It looks okay, at least right now. The National Hurricane Center does say this system has a 40% chance of becoming a tropical depression. These storms are bringing the risk of flash flooding to the central Gulf Coast. That risk continues until this weekend. The death toll, meantime, from the July 4th floods across central Texas has risen to at least 134, closing in on the grim United States record for an inland flood of 144 people killed, set in Colorado in the 1976 Big Thompson River flood. At least 107 people have been confirmed to have died in Kirk County. It will, of course, be a long road for these victims of the Central Texas floods. If you want to help, our parent company, Sinclair, has partnered with the Salvation Army, and 100% of your donation goes to flood relief efforts. Just scan the QR code or go to sinclaircares.com. President Trump officially rescheduled fentanyl as a Schedule 1 narcotic. That increases automatic penalties for fentanyl drug traffickers and others convicted of fentanyl-related crimes. In President Trump's first term, he temporarily classified fentanyl as a Schedule 1, but needed Congress to make it permanent. President Biden supported House-passed legislation, but the bill never made it to his desk, failing to get out of the then Democratic-controlled Senate. Earlier this morning, President Trump welcomed the Crown Prince of Bahrain to the White House and touting the new formal civilian nuclear cooperation deal the two nations signed.
We've had a tremendous relationship, I have personally, with Bahrain over the years, and has been a fantastic ally. And anything they needed, we helped them, and anything we needed, they helped us.
The deal signed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio this morning allows U.S. companies to invest in nuclear energy projects in Bahrain, an island off the coast of Saudi Arabia. It's part of President Trump's effort to enhance global energy security. Crown Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa says his nation is also investing more than $17 billion in the U.S. That deal involves Gulf Air and Boeing aircraft. Later tonight, the Prime Minister of Qatar will dine with President Trump at the White House. At least 17 immigration judges have lost their jobs since last Friday as the Trump administration seeks to streamline their deportation process. Just last night, deportations began to the country of Eswatini in South Africa. 5 migrant detainees from the countries of Vietnam, Laos, Jamaica, Cuba, and Yemen were sent out of the United States. All 5 are suspected or convicted criminals with charges ranging from child rape to murder. Kilmar Abrego Garcia will stay in jail for now as he awaits his human smuggling trial. Today, a Tennessee judge said he won't decide this week about the Salvadoran national's release. Abrego Garcia's lawyers had argued he's not a danger to the community, but were concerned immigration officials would detain him. He was brought back to the States last month to face charges after being erroneously deported in March. After passing President Trump's mega bill that ramps up funding for ICE, House Republicans are calling for the federal government to cut ties with nonprofits, many of them religious groups who help migrants during the Biden administration. The National News Desk, Atra El Nashar reports from Capitol Hill.
Republicans backing President Trump's aggressive deportation efforts now going after non-governmental organizations that provided services to migrants during the Biden administration.
FEMA provided grants to numerous NGOs, many of whom are operating at the southwest border. These groups spent billions of taxpayers' dollars. Many of the NGOs served as a launching pad for mass illegal immigration.
Republicans on the House Homeland Security Committee sent letters to more than 200 NGOs requesting information. Many of the groups are religious, and none have been found to have done anything illegal.
Republicans falsely accuse Catholic, Jewish, Lutheran, Methodist, evangelical, Muslim, and secular charities that feed, clothe, and aid the needy of having, quote, supercharged the business model of cartels.
Instead of having NGOs appear before the committee, the witnesses included the Heritage Foundation's Mike Howell, who's promoted conspiracies about the 2020 election and former President Biden's use of an auto pen.
The goal has always been destabilization. This destabilization is happening right here around us.
With no clear goal for what should come of an investigation into the hundreds of charities, some lawmakers of both parties tell their colleagues to move on.
Newsflash! Joe Biden is not the president.
Moving forward, we need to make sure that legislation states properly that any NGO, whether or not be it a Catholic organization or whomever, has to follow certain guidelines and rules.
I would say the simpler solution is to stop funding the invasion of the United States. We can impose these standards.
Okay, I got you, buddy. I'm trying to go granular on this. I agree with you wholeheartedly, but I'm trying to fix a problem that exists. We can bitch about it all day long, which we're just going to beat each other up and we're not going to go anywhere. I'm really trying to fix this problem, okay?
The Department of Homeland Security lists all the organizations that got this federal funding on its website and how much they got. The vast majority, though, of the 200 charities that Republicans are looking into are not on that list.
Also, Audra, what are you hearing from the nonprofits at the center of all of this?
Well, one of them, the faith-based group Endeavors, tells me that they were not formally notified about today's hearing until late yesterday. And Republicans accuse this group specifically today of, quote, padding their pockets with federal funds. But the group tells me, Dee Dee, that all of their work was requested specifically by the federal government in 2021 to expand emergency shelter and support services and was conducted under federal oversight. As for other groups, look, a lot of them that we reached out to did not want to directly comment on this, which is understandable, ruffling feathers when they're in a delicate spot with federal funding and everything. But a lot of them have called this probe an intimidation tactic and say that they were simply carrying out their mission to provide services to people in need.
Well, let us know if you eventually hear back. Interesting report live from Washington, D.C. Atra El-Nashar, thank you. 5 individuals in Louisiana, including former and current police chiefs, have been indicted on visa fraud and filing fraudulent police reports. Acting U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Louisiana claiming these police officials filed reports of violent crimes against non-legal residents to allow them to be able to apply for U.S. visas. These documents allow non-citizens to stay in the country when they are victims or witnesses of crimes. The officers together face 62 charges in all. Phoenix Eichner, the former Florida State student accused of the fatal shooting on the FSU campus earlier this year, will go to trial on November 3rd. Eichner was not in court today with his defense team for the scheduling hearing. 2 students were killed, 7 others injured in the mass shooting on April 17th. The next pretrial hearing in the case is set for August 13th. New tonight, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. shaking up HHS leadership after just a few months at the helm. He ousted his chief of staff and deputy chief of staff. He reportedly lost confidence in them as part of the team, though it's unclear if anything specific happened. An HHS spokesman says the department's White House liaison will step in for now. More major changes could be coming to airports all across the country as Homeland Security Director Kristi Noem seeks to streamline the TSA screening process. Talking to reporters this morning, The Hill says Noem is contemplating changes to the amount of liquid passengers could carry through security checkpoints. Right now, that limit is just shy of 3.5 ounces. What's more, the HHS director says one day you could walk right through the the checkpoints with minimal lines. Noam says they are talking with different companies to design new scanners to allow travelers to go directly to their gates without decreasing security standards. There is no timeline given for when this pilot program could be offered at select airports nationwide. Coming up, a new snapshot of the direction inflation is heading, the latest report on wholesale prices. Plus, a new poll shows most voters disapprove of how the Epstein case is being handled, the growing discontent among the president's most loyal supporters. And caught on camera, a North Carolina woman stealing disaster relief supplies from a church. How the pastor responded when we come back. Wholesale inflation remained calm last month despite concerns over President Trump's tariffs. The producer price index was unchanged from May, although it was up by 2.3% from a year prior. Both figures are below what economists predicted. So-called core producer prices, which exclude food and energy, were also the same as in May, but nearly 3% higher than last year. President Trump denies he will fire Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, but takes a jab at the Fed headquarters renovations.
I don't rule out anything, but I think it's highly unlikely unless he has to leave for fraud. I mean, it's possible there's fraud involved with the $2.7 billion renovation.
There is no evidence of fraud in the project, but White House officials accuse the Fed of mismanaging it. The Fed says it's meant to cut costs over time. Nonetheless, an inspector general is reviewing the project. Trump says he'll wait until the end of Powell's term to pick somebody new, but admits he did talk about possibly firing the chairman with GOP lawmakers yesterday. Powell says he won't leave if Trump tries to fire him. The dispute is over interest rate policy. Vice President J.D. Vance is promoting the recently passed Republican Big Beautiful Bill. The spending bill includes key campaign pledges from President Trump, like no tax on tips, but the bill also includes minimum work requirements for Medicaid and food stamps. During an event in Pennsylvania, Vance touted the spending bill's tax cuts and says they will help American small businesses.
So if you're a small business, if you're a medium-sized business, if you want to invest in American workers, we are going to make it so you pay less taxes. Invest in Americans and your government ought to reward you. Isn't that common sense?
A final Senate vote could come as soon as today on a major spending cuts bill. The rescissions package would claw back $9.4 billion in previously approved spending. President Trump wants to cut public media and foreign aid programs, among other categories. But some Republicans say they don't have enough information.
Neither the administration nor others have been able to provide that very clear, very transparent explanation about the programs and the priorities that are going to be cut as a result of the measure.
If it does pass the Senate, the bill will go back to the House, then President Trump's desk for a signature before a Friday deadline. On the House side of Congress, the chief of staff for former First Lady Dr. Jill Biden refuses to answer questions about former President Joe Biden's health and mental fitness in a deposition. Listen.
That's just crazy. You can't answer a simple question about the former president's ability to discharge his duties, and you worked in the White House as chief of staff to the First Lady, and you come in here and you plead the Fifth.
Former Chief of Staff Anthony Bernal was called to testify as part of the Republican-led House Oversight Committee's investigation into Biden's end-of-term decline. Committee leaders say they just asked Bernal about the former president's health, and he declined to answer. Biden's former White House physician did the same thing as part of the probe. Republicans, including President Trump, claim some policies carried out under Biden were signed using the auto pen without his knowledge, saying he was incapacitated. Biden denies the accusations, calling them ridiculous and false. 6 in 10 voters disapprove of the Trump administration's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein case. That's according to a new Quinnipiac poll. That includes some of the president's most loyal supporters. No matter how the president tries to move on from the Jeffrey Epstein files controversy, his MAGA base will not let him. Here's national correspondent Kayla Gaskins.
I think that the American people need to see what's in there.
The list of Republicans demanding more transparency from the Jeffrey Epstein case is growing rather than shrinking.
It's a very delicate subject, but we should put everything out there and let the people decide.
On Wednesday, Trump calling the Epstein files a hoax on Truth Social, and those asking for more answers from the administration and DOJ, weaklings doing the Democrats' work. After saying this to reporters on Tuesday.
I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff.
Earlier this month, the Justice Department put out a memo saying there's no Epstein client list, no evidence he tried to blackmail prominent individuals, and nothing to spur further investigations or charges.
They've got videotape, and all of a sudden they don't. You know, you got the director of the FBI on this show saying there's no if there was, nothing you're looking for is on those tapes. Like, what? Why'd they say there was thousands of hours of tapes of people doing horrible shit? Why'd they say that?
The memo also concluded Epstein did die by suicide, providing the security video from outside his cell the night he died as proof. But nearly a full minute is clearly cut from the footage. And metadata analysis from the clips now reportedly shows as much as 3 minutes of video from that night might actually be missing. Epstein's brother spoke with Don Lemon.
It's pretty obvious that it wasn't a suicide. I'm concerned about my brother's death and the missing information that we can't get.
As the public loses faith in Attorney General Pam Bondi's handling of the case, calls now rising for a special counsel to investigate.
I think because of her lack of confidence and transparency that the public has in what she's done, I think the best thing to do is to bring in another lawyer who looks at it and then does release the files.
Republican Representative Thomas Massie teaming up with Democrat Ro Khanna to push for a House vote on requiring the Justice Department to release the Epstein files. On Capitol Hill, I'm Kayla Gaskins reporting for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
The Syrian government and leaders of the Druze religious minority within Syrian borders announced a new ceasefire after a previous ceasefire fell apart within hours. It also comes after Israel launched airstrikes to Damascus today, vowing to defend the Druze community. Israel's defense minister told Syrian militias, if you attack the Druze, you attack us. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio calls the situation complicated. He says the U.S. has been engaged with both sides, working towards de-escalation.
These are historic, long-time rivalries between different groups in the southwest of Syria, Bedouins, the Druze community, and it led to an unfortunate situation and a misunderstanding, it looks like, between the Israeli side and the Syrian side.
Russia continues to bombard Ukraine, attacking it with hundreds of drones overnight, including in President Zelensky's hometown of Kryvyi Rih. At least 15 people were injured. The barrage mostly targeted energy infrastructure. Russia has been escalating its aerial campaign against civilian areas. The U.S. is threatening economic sanctions on Russia if it does not stop. Drug maker Pfizer is warning doctors nationwide they are expecting to run run low on a specific type of penicillin used to treat syphilis during pregnancy. Last week, Pfizer recalled certain batches of injectable Ibicillin LA that were found to be contaminated with floating particles. But that recall is putting current batch levels at risk. Doctors warn expectant mothers that syphilis infections during pregnancy without proper treatment can lead to miscarriages and stillbirths. Once again, our nation's blood supply is at a critical shortage, and the recent storms have only added to a dwindling supply. Medical reporter Liz Bonas shares why healthcare providers are asking all of us to roll up a sleeve and make a difference.
Hey there, everybody. There is an urgent need right now for blood donors in much of the country, and those who manage our blood supply say it is due to everything from low donor turnout to several weather-related emergencies. From extreme flooding in Texas and the East Coast to the sweltering heat in the Midwest and the prime vacation season across the country, all are keeping people away from what Jack Pilley is doing this week.
You just feel good after you do it for other people.
Donating blood, the need has not stopped.
There is a trickle-down effect.
You see, hospitals need to perform surgeries. Cancer patients still need blood products for treatment, even in the areas of the country where blood can't be collected, which is why your blood is so needed right now. Ohio's Hawksworth Blood Centers told us.
It's not just us, this happens at a lot of blood centers across the country. The problem with that is that then if we do need to go to those partners, if we are on the low end of blood supply, we need those partners to also have the blood available.
Summer is already a tough time to get donors to come out, and our entire blood supply nationwide is supported by about 5% of eligible donors. So if you can, do what Melanie Etheridge is doing. Remember, the life you save may be that of someone you love.
And my brother needed blood, so when you have a specific need where your family members need it, it becomes very aware that there are people that you would never think that need blood. So if I can help, I'll do it.
Hawksworth giving donors this free red shirt if you donate in the month of July. They do always have a higher need this time of year, but it's been critical right now. For more information on where to donate, how to donate, you can call 513-451-0910 or click inside the digital version of this story to schedule online at a neighborhood center near you.
Coming out, the action being taken to crack down on a rise in violence among teens in Maryland. We'll have that story right after this. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. We are taking the pulse of America, and we start in Maryland, where officials are cracking down on violence from teens.
Laurel Mayor Keith Sidnor sharing this video with 7 News. He says it shows a meetup, young people gathering at the Laurel Town Center just to fight and cause trouble. He says when he first saw it, it affected him.
I was disappointed, that the parents would allow their kids to come out and being disruptive.
And so when a meetup on July 5th got out of hand with fights and young people even shooting fireworks at responding police officers, he decided the time had come to enforce an 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. youth curfew, with exceptions for school, work, church, sports, and entertainment events. He says Laurel police will enforce it, but he hopes parents will step up and be parents.
Coming up next, a woman in Asheville, North Carolina was caught on surveillance camera robbing a church that's being used as a disaster relief distribution center. The pastor says he was shocked and disappointed that the suspect was taking advantage of what they're doing to help Hurricane Helene victims. A church member says the woman stole a blanket, clothes, tools, and food.
So here's blankets and sleeping bags that we've been giving out. This is donations that have come in specifically to help Helene victims.
And she came into this room?
She came in every room.
Police say they secured a warrant for the suspect.
Sunday's ICE detainment of 27-year-old Ivan Rene Mendoza Meza has drawn criticism from community members and local politicians.
These actions that ICE officials and other federal agents are committing in our city and our states are horrifying.
Providence police say ICE detained Mendoza after chasing the vehicle he was in to this home on Alverson Avenue. ICE Boston posted this morning saying Mendoza was a, quote, self-identified MS-13 gang member who had a criminal past that included fentanyl trafficking. It also claims Providence 6th District Court released him in 2024 against ICE orders. NBC 10 did confirm in court records that Mendoza was charged with 4 felony counts, 3 drug-related charges in 2023. He pleaded not guilty at his arraignment and posted bail.
Coming out, the hefty price tag of the world's biggest meteorite, thought to come from the surface of Mars. We'll be right back after this. The world's largest meteorite is going up for auction today. You'll remember we told you about this one. Sotheby's auction house says the massive rock is believed to be from the surface of Mars and was blown off by an asteroid strike. The meteorite was found in November 2023. It weighs 54 pounds, estimated to sell for $2 million to $4 million. That's going to do it for us for this edition of the National News Desk. We invite you to join us again.